Let's be real. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can dog is nothing at all. You've given him attention. You've shown him care. You've made yourself available. Emotionally, physically, mentally. And still, he doesn't seem to truly see you. Here's the truth most people don't want to admit. When someone gets used to your presence, they stop valuing your essence. And that's where your power comes in, not by begging, not by explaining, not even by proving your worth, but by withdrawing your energy, not to punish him, but to protect you, not to manipulate, but to remind in yourself who you actually are when you're not constantly reaching. Because once you ignore his existence, in the healthiest, most self-loving way, he'll finally realize what he's really missing, the real you. When you distance yourself from someone who has taken you for granted, it's not about playing a game. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about sending a clear message without saying a word. I will no longer participate in my own disrespect. That silence, that absence, speaks volumes. And for someone who's gotten used to your presence, your effort, your constant availability, that absence becomes deafening. People often confuse emotional detachment with coldness, or they think it's manipulation. But there's a huge difference between manipulation and maturity. Manipulation says, I'm doing this so you'll come running back. Maturity says, I'm stepping back because I need to come back to myself. And when you do that, when you stop pouring into someone who only drinks from your cup but never fills it, it forces them to confront a reality they've been avoiding, that your presence was a gift, not a guarantee. Think about it. We live in a world where people are so distracted, so overstimulated, that they begin to treat genuine connection as disposable. You can be the most loving, loyal, generous person, and someone will still treat you like an option if they know you'll always be there. But what happens when you're not there anymore? What happens when the texts don't come in, when the likes stop showing up, when the energy suddenly dries up? That's when they start to feel it. That's when they realize that you weren't just a convenience. You were a presence, a light, a mirror reflecting something deep back at them. And now it's gone. Here's the key: your absence has to be real, not forced, not fake. You can't be secretly waiting behind the curtain, hoping they'll come looking for you. Because if you're still emotionally invested in whether or not they miss you, you're still giving them control. The real power lies in letting go, because it's what's best for you, not because of how you think they'll react. That's when your absence becomes powerful. That's when the silence speaks truth. And ironically, that's usually the moment they feel the loss most deeply. When you stop reaching out, when you stop reminding them of what you bring to the table, when you stop showing up in all the little ways that made you different from the rest, they begin to notice. Maybe not right away. Maybe they'll try to distract themselves, pretend it doesn't matter. But eventually, they'll scroll through old photos. They'll think of that one joke you always made. They'll miss the way you listened, the way you made them feel seen. And the realization will hit them. You didn't leave to get attention. You left because you finally saw your own value. So don't think of your absence as silence. Think of it as clarity. A moment for them to feel what life is like without you. A moment for you to reconnect with your worth. And if they come back, they'll come back with a new understanding of who you are. And if they don't, that's clarity too. Because someone who can live without you without blinking was never truly holding space for the real you in the first place. Ignore absence. Someone who once had access to your heart isn't about being heartless. It's about protecting what's precious and reminding yourself that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away without noise. Let them feel what it's like when you stop showing up, not to hurt them, but to heal yourself. You don't need to chase someone to be chosen. That's one of the hardest truths to swallow when your emotions are invested in a person who feels distant, inconsistent, or unclear. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, if I just try a little harder, if I just say the right thing, if I just prove how much I care. But the more you chase someone, the more you send a silent messaging that they are the prize, and you are the one auditioning. That mindset shifts the entire dynamic, and not in your favor. Real attraction doesn't come from constant pursuit. It comes from energy, from presence, from living a life so full, so magnetic, that someone naturally wants to be pulled into your world. When you stop obsessing over what they're doing, saying, or feeling, and you start pouring that focus into your own growth, your own joy, your own peace, something shifts, your energy changes, and people notice. The mistake many people make in love is believing that effort equals success. That if they just put in enough time, enough sacrifice, enough emotional labor, it'll all pay off. But effort only matters if it's mutual, of your absence. When you're constantly chasing someone, you're not building a connection. You're exhausting yourself. You're abandoning your own emotional needs in hopes that they'll eventually turn around and give you what you've already been giving them. But that's not love. That's self-neglect dressed up as loyalty. When you choose to stop chasing, it's not about giving up. It's about shifting your focus. It's about asking, what do I want my life to feel like with or without this person? Because the moment you start answering that question honestly, you start building a life that excites you, with or without them in it. You start doing things that light you up. You spend time with people who make you feel whole, not hollow. Await your absence. You get back in touch with who are when you're not bending to fit into someone else's story. That's where your real power lies. Not in convincing someone to see your value, but in knowing it so deeply that anyone who doesn't see it simply fades into the background. People are drawn to confidence, not desperation. They're drawn to people who seem grounded, not constantly seeking approval. And the irony is, the moment you stop needing someone's attention, that's often the exact moment they try to give it. Not because you played a game, but because you became so focused on building your own world that they finally realized what they were losing. You have to trust that if someone really wants to be part of your life, they'll find a way. You won't have to beg or chase or shrink yourself to hold their interest. You won't have to decode their mixed signals or justify their lack of effort. You'll simply see it in how they show up, consistently, openly, genuinely. So if you're sitting around wondering why he's not reaching out, or why he's suddenly distant, don't waste another drop of your energy crafting the perfect message or rehearsing what you'd say if he just responded. Use that energy to deepen your relationship with yourself. Show up for your life in ways you've been putting on hold. Reconnect with the parts of you that don't need anyone's validation to feel alive. When you do that, you stop being the one who's waiting. You become the one who's choosing. And that shift, from chaser to chooser, changes everything, not just in love, but in the way you move through the world. You become someone who doesn't need to be chosen because you already chose yourself. And that's the kind of energy people truly miss when it's gone. So many people stay stuck in unfulfilling situations because they've fallen in love with someone's potential, not their reality. They keep showing up, hoping the other person will evolve, mature, or suddenly realize how much they're worth. They make excuses, telling themselves, he's just not ready right now. Or, he's had a tough past, I just need to be patient. But the truth is, the longer you stay invested in potential, the more disconnected you become from your own needs and from what's actually happening in front of you. Potential is a promise that hasn't been kept yet. It's not real. What's real is how someone treats you now. What's real is whether they're showing up, being consistent, respecting your time and energy. We all have potential. Every human being is capable of growth. But potential alone doesn't make someone a good partner. Their choices do. Their actions do. The way they show up in your life, or don't. When you're constantly performing for someone's potential, you're often stuck in a subtle, endless audition. You're trying to be more patient, more forgiving, more understanding. Not because that's what the relationship requires, but because you're hoping that if you're good enough, they'll finally become who you want them to be. But here's what you're really doing. You're editing yourself to fit into a version of a relationship that doesn't even exist yet. Love isn't about earning someone's future self. It's about seeing who they are now and deciding if that's a person you can build with. If he's emotionally unavailable today, that's who you're dating. If he's not prioritizing you right now, that's your reality. And continuing to pour into someone who isn't pouring back isn't selfless. It's self-sabotage. We often cling to potential because it lets us stay attached to hope. And hope is powerful, but it becomes dangerous when it keeps us locked in cycles of waiting, wishing, and convincing. You deserve more than be in someone's life as a placeholder while they figure things out. You deserve to be with someone who sees your value now, not someone who might see it once they finish healing, growing, or fixing whatever's broken. If someone has to become a whole new person just to meet you where you are, then maybe they're not your person. What makes this so tricky is that you likely see the good in them. You see flashes of who they could be. Maybe they even show up just enough to keep you hanging on. A kind message here, an apology there. It's easy to take those moments as proof that the real version of the relationship is just around the corner. But how long have you been waiting already? How many chances have you given, telling yourself, maybe next time? At some point, you have to stop hoping for change and start honoring your standards. The right person won't require you to mold yourself into someone more accommodating or endlessly patient just to be loved. They'll meet you where you are. They'll see you, the real you, and choose you consistently. They won't ask you to stay loyal to their growth while giving you nothing stable in return. So stop performing for someone's potential. Stop twisting yourself into knots, hoping they'll eventually rise to your level. Let people show you who they are and believe them. You don't need to keep proving that you're worthy of love, especially not to someone who only gives you glimpses of it when it suits them. The real test isn't how much potential a person has. It's how they treat you when they don't think they're about to lose you. There's a version of you that existed before you started questioning your worth, before you overanalyzed every message, waited hours, or even days, for replies and twisted yourself into emotional knots wondering what you did wrong. That version of you wasn't desperate, anxious, or drained. She was alive, grounded, and confident. She knew who she was, what she brought to the table, and what kind of love she deserved. That's the real you. And when someone reduces you to a version of yourself that feels constantly unsure, unseen, or not enough, it's a sign you've drifted away from that center. The real you doesn't beg for clarity. She doesn't chase half-hearted attention or settle for hot and cold behavior. She doesn't get hooked on someone who keeps showing up inconsistently, just enough to keep the door slightly open, but never enough to walk all the way in. That desperate feeling you've been experiencing, that tight grip, that racing heart, that anxious checking of your phone, that's not love, that's fear. It's the fear of being rejected, abandoned, or forgotten. And it has nothing to do with your value and everything to do with what someone's presence or absence has triggered in you. When you're in a dynamic like that, it becomes hard to even remember who you were before it started. Your days start revolving around their availability. Your mood starts depending on how they treat you that week. You find yourself over-giving, over-apologizing, over-explaining. But none of that changes the core issue. You're trying to earn love that should have been given freely. And every time you abandon your own needs to keep someone else comfortable, you drift further from the version of you that doesn't need to be chosen to feel whole. That version, the real you, is not only confident but also calm. She doesn't react from panic. She doesn't overextend herself just to keep someone's attention. She knows how to walk away, not because she doesn't care, but because she cares about herself more. That version of you is powerful, but here's the thing, she can't coexist with desperation. She doesn't live in a space where you're constantly proving yourself or earning someone's basic respect. She lives in peace, in joy, in her own presence. And when you reconnect with that version of yourself, even if it means pulling away from someone you thought you needed, you become magnetic again. And it's at that point, almost like clockwork, that they start to notice. Not because you said something dramatic, not because you posted the perfect photo online or made them jealous, but because your energy changed. The light came back in your eyes. You stopped responding so fast. You stopped needing their attention to feel validated. And in doing so, you stopped playing a role that was never truly you. That's the moment they start to miss you. Not the version of you that was always available, always patient, always waiting. They miss the version of you they didn't take the time to see clearly the first time around. The one who knew her worth, who had boundaries, who didn't need them to feel powerful. And that's the irony. When you let go of needing someone to see you, they finally do. Because people feel it when your energy shifts from craving to confidence. When you stop trying to be enough for them and start realizing you were already enough for yourself. So, if you've lost sight of that version of you, don't panic. She's still in there. She's just been buried under someone else's indecision. The moment you decide to stop accepting less than you deserve, she returns. Not louder, but clearer. Not desperate, but sure. That's the real you. And when you stop showing up for someone who never fully showed up for you, that's when she rises again. It's easy to confuse attention with affection, especially when your emotions are tangled up in someone who's inconsistent. You miss them, and then suddenly they like your story, send a hey text at midnight, or leave a comment on your post. Your heart jumps. You feel noticed. A part of you thinks, maybe he's coming back. Maybe he's realizing what he lost. But here's the truth: attention is an affection. And someone can give you attention without ever offering the depth, consistency, or commitment that love actually requires. In fact, when someone gives you breadcrumbs of attention after pulling away or treating you like an afterthought, it's often not about you at all. It's about them, their ego, their need to know that you're still available, that they still have access. And as long as you respond, as long as you light up every time they reappear, they don't have to change a thing. They don't have to step up. They just have to show up in small, calculated doses to keep you emotionally invested. This is one of the most frustrating dynamics you can experience because it feels like hope. It feels like progress. But it's a loop. One where you keep getting just enough to stay attached, but never enough to feel secure. You start analyzing every tiny interaction, assigning meaning to every emoji or 3-word message, looking for signs that this time it's different. But deep down, you know it's not. Because real affection doesn't leave you questioning. It doesn't leave you anxious, confused, or waiting. Real affection is consistent. It's grounded. It shows up fully. Not when it's convenient, not just when they're lonely, but all the time. When someone truly values you, you don't have to guess their feelings. You don't have to earn their love through patience or puzzle solving. You feel it in how they show up. They reach out because they care, not because they want to remind you that they exist. They invest in your life. They ask real questions. They make space for you, not just in passing moments, but in meaningful, ongoing ways. You deserve that kind of connection. The one that feels safe, seen, and solid. But you'll never find it while chasing someone who only gives you attention in small bursts. Because every time you respond to those empty gestures, you send a message, this is enough for me. And it's not. You know it's not. The painful part is accepting that someone can miss you, can even feel drawn to you, and still not be ready or willing to offer real love. They might think about you. They might scroll through old photos. They might reach out in moments of boredom or nostalgia. But that's not love. That's possession. That's control. That's ego. So the next time someone who's been distant sends you a random message or gives you digital crumbs of attention, pause. Ask yourself, what am I really being offered here? Is this a meaningful reconnection? Or is it just another emotional ping to keep me attached? And more importantly, what do I truly want? Because you don't want attention. Not really. You want to be loved deeply, consistently, and without games. You want to feel chosen, not chased after you've pulled away. You want connection, not confusion. And when you stop settling for attention and start demanding affection, not with words, but with your silence, your standards, your self-worth, everything changes. You stop reacting, you stop waiting, you start living. And the moment you do that, you reclaim the power that was always yours. When you step away from someone, it doesn't always mean slamming the door or making a dramatic exit. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle. It's simply no longer showing up in the same way, no longer being the one to reach out first, no longer filling the silence they create, no longer chasing clarity from someone who refuses to give it. And while on the surface that may look like distance, what it really creates is clarity for both of you. Distance is powerful. It allows emotions to settle, distractions to fall away, and truth to rise to the surface. When you're caught in the middle of something, especially a relationship filled with uncertainty, inconsistency, or unspoken needs, you can't always see it clearly. You're reacting, hoping, overanalyzing. You're too close to it. But when you step back, when you stop showing up of habit or fear of losing them, the space begins to do the talking. For them, that space reveals a version of life without you in it. The texts don't come in. The warmth is gone. The emotional safety net they once took for granted disappears. And at first, they might not know how to respond. Some people panic and rush in with surface-level contact. I miss you, or thinking of you, just enough to see if you'll bite. But if the silence continues, they're forced to face something deeper, the realization that your presence was not only consistent, it was meaningful. And now, it's gone. For you, the distance is just as important. It helps you see what you were really holding on to. Was it love? Or the potential for love? Was it a connection that truly nourished you? Or a connection you were trying to fix, save, or survive? In the silence, you start to notice how much emotional labor you were carrying. You begin to realize how often you compromised your needs for the sake of keeping the connection alive. And that realization hurts, but it also frees you. The longer you stay in that space, the more clarity you gain. If they come back, you get to observe what they're actually bringing to the table. Is it real effort? Or is it just discomfort with losing control? Are they showing up differently, or just trying to pull you back into the same cycle? Without distance, you can't answer those questions. But with space, their intentions become much easier to read. Consistency becomes visible. Effort becomes measurable. Words are no longer enough. You need action. And if they don't come back, that's clarity too. It tells you that the connection was more one-sided than you were willing to admit. That they were okay with letting you go. As painful as that truth may be, it spares you from wasting more time trying to win over someone who was never fully invested. It gives you permission to release the fantasy and start showing up for the kind of love that doesn't leave you doubting your worth. The space you create is not punishment. It's not a tactic. It's a boundary, one that honors your value and invites only those who are willing to meet you there. When someone really sees what they've lost, not because you told them, but because they felt it, they have a choice to make. And so do you. You can allow them back in, but only if their return aligns with the clarity you gained in their absence. Because once you see clearly, you can't go back to blindness. Once you know your worth, you stop making space for anything less. You find the version of yourself that doesn't beg, doesn't shrink, and doesn't wait around hoping someone finally recognizes what was always there. You stop settling for crumbs and start demanding the kind of love that doesn't confuse, hurt, or disappear when things get real. Ignoring his existence isn't about being cold. It's about reclaiming your power. It's about removing your energy from where it's not appreciated, so you can redirect it to where it can actually grow within you. And yes, the silence will speak. He will feel the absence. He will remember your warmth, your presence, your spark, and he'll realize that what he thought would always be there won't be anymore. But by then, you won't be waiting for that realization. You'll be living, glowing, loving, as the real you. The one who never needed to be chased, only chosen.